Hello again, and this is Mr. Knox along with Miss Erling and Mrs. Kim. Right now we're going to be talking about Chapter 4, Section 3 in the book. It deals with cell division. You guys, as always, should have read the book or be following along in the book, pages 129 to 136. Today's essential question is, how do cells make other cells? Well, that is done through the cell cycle. The cell cycle is how one cell becomes two. One cell becomes two. A lot of students misinterpret. They think mitosis is how the cell divides, but it's actually the cell cycle. The cell cycle is how one cell becomes two. It's how the nucleus divides and all the cells, cell organelles divide, and they split into the two different parts of the cell and create two different daughter cells, or two of the same daughter cells, I should say. All right, the first part of the cell cycle is interphase. And an interphase, this is the cell that you guys know and love. Okay, this is the typical cell that's drawn in books and stuff. What happens during the interphase stage is the cell grows, gets bigger, and it prepares itself to copy its DNA. Then later on in interphase, it actually does copy the DNA. So interphase is the cell starting to divide. So, in your own words, please describe or summarize what happens during interphase.
Well, what Mr. Knox forgot to mention is that interphase is the longest phase of the cell cycle, and it usually takes up pretty much most of the time of the cell cycle. Okay, stage 2 is called mitosis, and it has 4 different phases: prophase, metaphase, anaphase, and telophase. During prophase, the nuclear membrane starts to disappear, so you can see that it's starting to disappear. The nucleolus or nucleoli also disappears. You see these pair of centrioles that have formed. They start to move to opposite ends of the cell, 2 each. And the DNA, which used to be long and stringy, becomes thicker, and it condenses and forms into chromosomes. Okay, so pause this video and see if you could summarize what happened during prophase. Okay, the next part of mitosis is metaphase, and this stage is really easy to remember because it starts with the letter M, and it's when the chromosomes line up in the middle, or the equator of the cell, middle. You can see this is an actual photograph. All the chromosomes line up in the middle. Okay, and in anaphase, the chromosomes that were in the middle of the cell starts getting pulled apart by the centrioles and the spindle fibers. See, this is an actual photo. You can see that the chromosomes are getting pulled apart. Okay, pause the video and please see if you can remember what happens during metaphase and anaphase. Okay, telophase is the last stage of mitosis, and you can see that there is the beginning of 2 separate cells, but it hasn't split yet. You could see that the nuclear membrane starts to reappear and comes back. And then mitosis is complete because now we see the beginning of 2 cells, and they have their own sets of chromosomes or DNA inside the nuclei. Okay, see if you could remember what happens during telophase.
All right, stage 3, cytokinesis. So in cytokinesis, we have the division of the cytoplasm, and you can see it happening here in these cells. The formation of the cleavage furrow, which is right here. And finally, the cell splits into two cells, two daughter cells, each with 2 chromosomes. So during cytokinesis in animal cells, the cell membrane squeezes together around the middle of the cell and pinches off 2 cells. In plant cells, the cell wall is too rigid to pinch off 2 cells, so a new plate forms across the middle of the cell. And you can see the difference here in these pictures. So think about this question. In your own words, summarize what happens during cytokinesis. So here we're talking about the structure of DNA. A chromosome consists of DNA strands. DNA stands for deoxyribose nucleic acid. So this DNA is wound tightly around the proteins, and here we see the proteins and the strands of DNA. The 2 sides of the ladder, you'll often hear it called a ladder because it kind of looks like a ladder, are made up of molecules of sugar called deoxyribose alternating with molecules called phosphates. So each rung of the ladder is made up of a pair of nitrogen bases. The 4 nitrogen bases are adenine, which is symbolized with an A, thymine, which is symbolized with a T, guanine, which is symbolized with a G, and cytosine, which is symbolized with a C. And you'll notice that only guanine and cytosine pair together, just as adenine and thymine pair together. And if we look in the picture, adenine is always opposite thymine, guanine is always opposite cytosine, and vice versa. So DNA goes through a replication process, and replication begins when the 2 sides of the DNA molecule unwinds and separates. So we start off, we have our spiral ladder. It unwinds and separates. So remember, this happens during the interphase stage. Next, nitrogen bases in the nucleus pair up with the bases on each half of the DNA molecule. So we see those nitrogen bases in the pink that are pairing up with each half of the DNA molecule. Because of the way the nitrogen bases pair up, the order of the DNA bases in the new molecule exactly matches that of the old, because adenine pairs with thymine and guanine pairs with cytosine. And you can check out this link down here for more DNA fun facts.